My sisters and my brothers, the Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
Thank you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one can take them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one can take them out of the Father's hand. The Father and I are one." The Gospel of the Lord. That's probably the shortest gospel reading we'll ever have on a Sunday morning. But unfortunately for you, my homily's not that short. So I found myself this week, as I seem to be doing more and more often, thinking back to the days of my youth. And I was thinking especially about my days in grade school and high school, about how when I used to complain, especially to my mother, when I had to do homework, when I had to study for tests, and I had to get up early to go to school. And I remember what she would always say to me every time I complained. She said, "Quit wishing away these years because they're the best years of your life." And I thought, nah, she can't be right. Said, I can't wait to get out of school so I don't have to do all these things anymore, and I can become an adult and do all the things that adults do. Well, obviously, as you know as well as I do, she was right. Those were great years in our lives, but not because they were necessarily the best years of our lives, because I think I've had a pretty blessed life throughout. But they were the best years in the sense that we had little to no responsibilities back then. All we had to do was get up and our food was ready for us. Our clothes were always clean. We had ways to get to and from wherever we wanted to go. We didn't have to worry about taking responsibility for many things. But as we grow older, as we become adults, we know those responsibilities just grow and grow and grow and become heavier and heavier on our shoulders. So I want you to think with me, how would you feel if someone said to you today, you now have the responsibility for the lives and the souls of more than 2 million people? How do you think that weight would feel on your shoulders? So think about that, and I'll come back to that in a moment. It's an appreciation of my homily. Today is Good Shepherd Sunday, the day we hear in our gospel reading today from John where Jesus said, "I know my sheep know me, and they hear me, and they come to me, and they follow me, because the Father has given them to me, and I hold them in my hand, and no one can take them out of my hand, because the Father put them there." What an awesome responsibility the Father gave to Jesus, to be responsible for the lives and the souls of every single one of us, through all time, through all generations. But as we know, Jesus didn't flinch from that responsibility. He took it on, even knowing what was to come, knowing that how everyone should love him because of all he would do for them. But instead, so many people hated him, to the point of killing him on that cross. And as we heard in our first reading today from the Acts of the Apostles, Jesus got to the point where he knew that he wasn't going to be with us any longer. So he handed that responsibility down to his followers, to his disciples. And as we heard in that first reading, Paul and Barnabas carried that duty out well. They accepted that responsibility to spread the good news of Jesus. But like Jesus, they too were being persecuted. As we heard in that reading, when they went to Antioch to talk about Jesus, they were told to quit speaking his name, to quit preaching about him. And the people wanted to persecute them just like they did Christ because of their belief in him. But their convictions were strong. They continued to do that in spite of the threats that they had. And while they were going to be persecuted in Antioch, they just got up, moved on to another place, and continued to preach that good news of Jesus Christ. That responsibility continues to be handed on. from generation to generation to all of us, but especially to a few, the leaders of our church. When I talked about what it would be like to have the responsibility of 2 million people placed on your shoulders, I was talking about our bishop, David Zubik. Because there are 2 million people who live in the 6 counties that make up our diocese. And he has responsibility for the souls of every single one of those people. Just like our pastors have responsibility for every soul within the territory of their parishes. And you might say, no, it's every Catholic. But no, it's every single person that lives in that area. They're responsible for ministering to them, to reaching out to them, and helping them find their way to Jesus if they don't know Jesus. But our bishop, David Zubik, has come to the realization that we can't continue to be the Church of Pittsburgh that we were 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago. He knows that things have changed, not just in our area, but in many areas. And he knows that we need to figure out how we can continue to be a church alive to all the people who need to be ministered to everywhere around us. He needs us to help him figure out how we fill these pews once again, like they used to be filled. How we reach out to those people who can't be here because they're sick and are homebound. Those people who are on assisted living facilities or nursing homes and can't get out to come here and to receive the Eucharist. To those homeless and those poor who have no way of being here. And especially to those who are the cast-offs of society, those who are in prisons. Bishop Zubik knows we need to find a way to be the Church of Pittsburgh to reach out to everyone in their place where they are, not just here. That's what On Mission for the Church Alive is all about. It's about filling these pews. It's about ministering to people wherever they are, wherever they need to hear the word of Jesus, to come to either know Jesus or find their way back to him if they've been lost in their life's path. That's On Mission for the Church Alive. If you don't know everything there is to know about On Mission for the Church Alive, I would encourage you to get a copy of last week's Pittsburgh Catholic. It was dedicated completely to explaining to all of us exactly what the bishop is trying to do. He's trying to reach out to all of us. So there are 3 things we need to consider doing, not just this coming week, but in the weeks to come. Continue, as we've been doing for over a year now, praying for the success of On Mission for the Church Alive. We need to understand better what On Mission is all about, so we need to educate ourselves. But the third and most important thing that we all need to do is we need to be part of On Mission. Over the next year, there are representatives of our parish, 6 of them, who have offered, at the request of Father Jim, to be our leadership group, to represent our parish in meetings throughout the diocese, to formulate a plan and a model to present to the bishop as how our parishes will look going forward. You can find their names in our bulletin this week so you'll know who they are, who have volunteered to put in countless hours in service to our church and to the diocese. And then they will come here and they will hold meetings for all of us to get our input, not just to hear what it's going to be, but to have input from all of us as to how we think our church can be the church alive and the church for 100 years from now, not just the church today. I greatly encourage all of you, come to those meetings, listen, offer your thoughts, offer your suggestions. So that just like Jesus was courageous when the Father gave him that awesome responsibility of watching over all of us, just as his disciples were courageous in taking up the work when he was gone, just as Bishop Zubik is courageous in doing what he knows needs to be done, even though he will face criticisms no matter what he does. We too need to be courageous so that our church, our parish, our diocese will be here 50 years from now, 100 years from now, not for us, but for the young ones, so that our church will be a strong church and a church ministering to everyone who needs it.